Hi, I'm Nathan Cole of natesviolin.com, and today we're going to talk about the fourth finger, how to whip it into shape, make it stronger, make it behave just like your other three fingers. Maybe by the end of the lesson you'll actually consider the four to be your lucky finger. So there's no doubt, for most people the four is the weakest finger, so whether you're talking about a faster, technical kind of playing like in Kreutzer Etude number 9, or something more singing, lyrical, where you're focused on the kind of vibrato that you can get with the four. The four just often doesn't want to behave. And really that's because it's not behaving like your other three fingers naturally do. You'll notice that with fingers 1, 2, and 3, they're likely going to maintain their curve all the time. So whether you're lifting them or dropping them, they're probably going to stay curved. And they lift and drop with the same shape. They're not lifting with one shape and dropping with another one. However, that 4, for a lot of people, it wants to flatten out, right? You place it down, it just goes flat. Or it will change shape. So it may lift one way but drop with another shape. It may resemble some kind of weird snake. So we're out to change that. Now I should say that many great players have kind of weird looking fourth fingers, so it's not the end of the world. Basically, the shorter your 4 is, the flatter it's going to be. That's just, the nature of anatomy and distance from the fingerboard and all that. But the vast majority of people can get some kind of curve to their 4, and that's just a stronger shape, a more versatile shape for technical and lyrical playing. So if you're struggling, give these steps a try, and it may not be too late for your 4 to act the way you want. So in this video, I'm going to go through a lot of steps. So it's going to be the condensed version. I don't expect you, especially if you haven't done any of this before, I don't expect you to go through all of this in one day and change your 4 in one day. You can start making changes in a day, but go ahead and break this up. These steps are going to take a lot of repetition and maybe a lot of comfort level in between. So take your time, do only a few minutes of this at a time. Pay attention to fatigue and certainly any pain that you might have. Stop, take a break, do some more later. So the first step is to get the basic hand shape and the placement of the fourth finger. And let's start on the A string. So what I would have you do is place your first through third fingers comfortably, let's say on 1, high 2, and 3. So we've got for 1, 2, 3. Let them rest lightly on the string. They don't have to be pressing down hard. Now find a position for your fourth finger where it's curved. And to help you out, you may want to place the fourth finger very close to the nail joint, almost on the nail, closer to the nail, let's say, than you're used to. Find that place that it's curved. If you're finding that yours wants to be straight, then you may actually have to move your hand closer to the neck to get that curved shape. But one way or another, get it curved and resting lightly on the string. Now, it's important when you do this, use only as much pressure as you can, but still maintaining that curve. So you're probably not going to be pressing down all the way like you would in normal playing, just to get that placement. Next step is to get the lifting of the finger. So as I said before, you're going to look how the other fingers lift. They lift pretty much straight up, a little bit back, and they maintain their curve. That's all you're after with the fourth finger. The pads of the finger, they stay pointed at the string when you're doing this, right? If you lift your first finger, hopefully it's not lifting up and pointing at the ceiling or anything, right? Hopefully it's lifting up. The pad is staying pointed toward the string. That's what we're after with the 4. It should be the same way, so it should lift up like that and a little bit back. You'll see the same shape coming up and coming down. Now, to help that placement in the lifting, I'm going to show you a little trick that you can do with an ordinary household tissue. So here I am, I've grabbed a tissue. I've actually grabbed 2 ordinary tissues. You can use 1 or 2 depending on the size of your hand, size of your fourth finger. What I'm going to do is just crumple these up into a ball. Simple as that. Make it pretty tight, pretty compact. I feel like I should be doing a magic trick at this point or something. And And I'm going to place it inside the curve of my fourth finger. I'm going to really put it in there. So now the 4 is holding on to this ball of tissues. And what I'm going to do is roll that 4 back and then forward again, back and forward. I'm keeping some pressure. I'm not, squeezing too hard, but I'm keeping some pressure so that that ball of tissue stays, fills up all the space in the curve of the fourth finger, and I'm just strengthening that. I might do this while I'm reading something, watching TV, but really only for a minute or two because you're going to feel some fatigue. But that will help lock in that lifting motion and get you away from lifting like that if that's what you have been doing. This, of course, forces you to maintain that nice shape as you lift. All right, so let's discard the tissue for now. All right, so now that you're comfortable with the lifting motion, and remember that may take some time, next it's time for the placing motion. So just as before, place fingers 1, 2, and 3. You only want to use as much pressure as you can while still maintaining that curve. And I'm going to place pretty slowly, pretty gently. I'm not going to be going for a big, thunk on the fingerboard. Incidentally, I have a video on finding your MVP, minimum viable pressure. And that is always a useful thing to keep in mind for this as well. So you're just after placing and lifting, placing and lifting. Spend a good amount of time doing this so that it becomes second nature. Once you get comfortable with it, then you can try it on the other strings. Keep your first, second, and third finger on the A string as you have them, but next move the fourth finger over to the D string, and then the G string, the E string. Now, when you do this, notice that my finger is going to be changing shape. Here on the E, it's the most curved, next A, next D, next G. So it's longest on the G. Here it is from this view. Here's G, D, A, E. I like the finger changing shape and not the arm doing a whole lot to help. So, some people will do, on the E string, they'll be like this, and then A, D, G, they're coming way over. Instead, as much as you can, let the finger change shape. Your arm can help out some, especially if you have a much shorter fourth finger, it can help out to reach over to the G, but as much as possible, let the fourth finger change shape. And G, you can save your work on G string till last since it's the furthest away. Next are tapping exercises, which you just saw me doing now. You're going to place lightly, lift with energy. You're going to get comfortable on each of the 4 strings and then do some alternating. So you could do like 4 on each string. Then alternate between them, for example, G, D, G, D, G, D, D, A, D, A, D, A, etc. And then all the way across. Again, letting the finger do as much of the work as possible, always maintaining that curve and that shape. The last step is to add the bow. Real playing, Place the fingers 1 through 3 again. You're going to use a moderate dynamic, not too quiet, because then you won't feel how it is to really stop the string. You want a clean placement, but as light as possible. So here I've got my 1 through 3 there. Now, simple as that. I'm looking to get a clean placement. If you're hearing, that means the finger is not coming down fast enough or decisively enough. If you're hearing real banging, then it's too hard. You don't need that much force. You want to repeat this now to get the fourth finger note as short as possible. So that will go like this. Until it's barely sounding, but the short note you do hear is very clear. That's kind of a preparation for trill work. Next, you're going to take away the third finger. So now you've just got, so next you'll do, again working to get that as short as possible, then take away the 2, And then take away the first finger, so you're working with open strings. I would still like to rest the first finger on an adjacent string. So let's say you could put it on the E string instead. And the reason you work down that way is because it's more difficult to stop the string with a bigger difference. In other words, 3 to 4, you're not changing the string length very much. Open to 4, you're changing it quite a bit, so it's harder to stop that string cleanly. So by now you should have a great foundation for your fourth finger, something you can build on to add layers of complexity and technical dazzle. So I think you're going to be a lot happier with your 4 when you follow these steps. I do want to mention one more thing, because I've gotten questions and I've seen people very concerned about which side of the finger they're going to play on. You know, a lot of people are taught you got to play on the left side of each finger. So, you know, the left side of 1, left side of 2, left side of 3, left side of 4, which, as you can see, that's really going to stretch out my fourth finger because of the way it curves. It's not natural and it's just not necessary. So it's totally fine, instead of insisting on being all the way on the left side of the 4, to be in the middle or even more toward the right side, so that, you know, my 1 is on the left side, but by the time I get to 3 and 4, you can see those fingers are pointing slightly different ways. That's totally fine. You can play around with how the finger leans depending on your hand shape, and that will be just fine for your playing. What's important is that it maintains the shape lifting and dropping. All right, I look forward to seeing you back here and at natesviolin.com. Make sure to download my free practice guide to get many more practice tips and work on Kreutzer 9.